the powerful peadophile head teacher, Neil Foden, the horrific groomer. A trusted head teacher, a spokesperson for the Welsh schooling system, a powerful man in his community, turned out to be a horrific child groomer with some sick and twisted sexual fantasies about underage girls, of which he would use and abuse his position of trust and authority to take full advantage of the young girls in his care and to enjoy and play out his disgusting desires. Warning: this episode contains distressing information about child grooming and sexual abuse. Viewer discretion is advised. Also, there certainly could be some bad language, as it is a random gen episode after all. So, the absolute sicko featured in this true crime episode today is a male called Neil Foden, a man in his late 60s. Someone who had a major sense of self-importance and arrogance. A male who felt completely untouchable. And to be honest, for many years, he kinda was. In total, there were said to have been at least 50 missed opportunities to stop and prevent this utter scumbag and save many young girls from being his victims. And time after time, he evaded any reprimands or punishments, even advancing in his career instead. Just shocking. So, the sick individual was unfortunately from one of the best countries in the world and my birth country, Wales. But I am not Welsh speaking, so please forgive me if I butcher the language and mispronounce places. He was from a place called, it's spelled Gwynant, in Old Colwyn, or Hengolwyn, a gorgeous area in the north of Wales. I absolutely love the north of the country. I visit these locations very often and have taken many photos over the years, and videos too, which I will be including in this very documentary. I don't want this male's sick crimes to darken or dampen this beautiful area's name and glorious history. Gwynant, Hengolwyn, is located in Colwyn Bay, one of my favourite places to visit, with a gorgeous vast beach, and also in the Conwy district, where you can find and locate the famous Conwy Castle, shown here on my photos. Wales has some of the most beautiful and magnificent castles and castle ruins in the entire world, with more than a whopping 400 castles and ruins still left standing. No matter where you travel through this phenomenal country, you are sure to see many castles along the way. Man, I just love Wales. Many beaches and coastlines, mountains and castles. What more can you want? Oh, and woods too. Anyway, enough of my love for Wales for now, and back to the disturbing individual in this case. Head teacher and man of authority over many, not just in his school, but ultimately his entire community, Mr. Neil Foden. A creepy bastard that I can only imagine smells of cheese and sweat and eats spam from a tin with his fingers. I mean, come on, he is a pretty creepy looking individual when you know what he has been doing for years. And in fact, getting away with too. He had two very drastically different sides to his personality and persona. He could be witty, charming and charismatic, and was indeed very intelligent. But then he would also display his darker side. Bullying, authoritative, abusive and demeaning to many, including other teachers and students at his school, particularly towards young boys. He loved to display his alpha male persona against the young male students, pushing and shoving them in the halls, for example. And he isn't a small fella, exerting his size and authority over all in that school. He felt powerful. He felt big. He felt he was most certainly in full control of everything and everybody. He appeared on the local TV and radio news many times and was actually one of Wales' most well-known and even most respected head teachers. He had held a senior post in a teaching union and even entered another Welsh school, calling himself a superhead, there to fix problems within that school. And people really and truly believed in him and trusted in his expertise. He would take any opportunity to be in front of the cameras. He literally acted in plain sight. He was the head teacher of a school called Ysgol Friars, which is a Welsh comprehensive school, first established in 1557, around 468 years ago, by founder Geoffrey Glyn. It is mixed gender with students aged between 11 and 18 and located in Bangor, another amazing location, a cathedral city and community in Gwynedd, North Wales. Neil Foden was known to bully many members of staff at his school, yet he still managed to be highly respected and regarded by many, and trusted too, which he used to his full advantage at any possible opportunity. Now, his disturbing crimes date back to at least 2019, but we're going to start on the day the entire investigation against the 66-year-old really began. The first day back at school for around 1,400 students at Ysgol Friars in Bangor in the year of 2023, around the 6th of September after the 6-week summer holidays. But this day would turn out to be like no other, as it would end with the powerful peadophile head teacher being arrested for his atrocious crimes, and even on school ground. Gotcha. All because of one incredibly brave young girl, who was one of Neil Foden's many victims, nearby to Bangor in the Welsh town of Carnarvon. The police station would receive a highly disturbing and worrying phone call related to the very well-known and respected figure in his community, head teacher Mr. Neil Foden himself. An unknown adult had contacted police on behalf of Neil's young female victim after they had discovered some horrific evidence against the head teacher that certainly could not be ignored or brushed aside. The person who had contacted police used the term romantic relationship when referring to the victim and Neil, which is incredibly disturbing and may have even been the young girl's own words, as she was indeed groomed by this sick fuck. Screenshots were uncovered which clearly displayed there had been a deep and worrying relationship between the schoolgirl and the man in his late 60s. Immediately, plainclothes officers went straight to Ysgol Friars and arrested the creepy individual, right there in his school, with his head teacher badge of honour around his neck. And weirdly, he just seemed to accept it.
Mr. Foden, unfortunately I need to arrest you on suspicion of sexual touching of a child and sexual communications with a child.
Right.
You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later align in court. Okay. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
So yeah, all he responded to when told in the very school he is the head of that he was being arrested on suspicion of sexual abuse, touching and communications with a child was, right. He then glances at the officer's body cam and just says, okay. He was arrested on the 6th of September 2023 and taken to Carnarvon police station. And to absolutely no surprise at all, he would answer with a no comment to literally everything, as do all guilty and sometimes even non-guilty suspects in the UK. The UK policing system is so tight and regimented, like no intimidating the suspects, for example, or in any way inciting them to give information, guilty or not, that nearly all of UK police interviews are just pointless to even watch, as that is genuinely all you hear, bloody no comment. But their reactions to questions can be very telling on their own. I have a few clips here for you of 66-year-old head teacher Neil Foden's police interviews, which could be a mixture from throughout the entire investigation. See what you think of his demeanour and responses to questions given.
And do you not see how much harm you've more than likely caused all these children in some shape or form? No comment.
From some of the statements I've read, like an air of arrogance or control about you where you just think possibly you're better than everyone else and you're untouchable. Is that what it is?
No comment.
And that you weren't going to get found out?
No comment.
What I'm seeing here, this is clear actions of what I would describe as, one of a better word, as a paedophile, because clearly you've got an interest in children from what these children are saying. So is that what your sexuality is?
No comment.
Do you want to tell me anything about that?
No comment.
You want to deny that?
No comment.
So I'd have to ask you, what is your role day to day as a head teacher?
No comment.
What does a head teacher do in school?
No comment.
Across a series of police interviews, Foden refused to comment on the allegations being put to him.
And do you not see that by doing so, how much harm you've more than likely caused all these children in some shape or form?
No comment.
Do you want to say anything about that?
No comment.
So, a sick and twisted individual, right guys, who clearly does have an attraction to young girls. A paedophile. A pure nonce. Now, Neil's victims will be named like so: Child A, Child B, Child C, and so on, to protect their identities. Child A is the victim who first kicked this whole investigation off, and she would be spoken to by a detective from the Child Protection Unit and also a social worker, along with the presence of her family. And this is when deeply horrifying details would be discovered about the true man behind the respected head teacher mask, the nonce himself, Mr. Neil Foden. Child A showed officers a photo of both her and Neil in his car, a car he would utilise many times to carry out his ghastly deeds of pure sexual child abuse and grooming over at least a 4-year period. She also displayed screenshots of her and Neil's conversations, like this one, which is sickeningly about oral sex. He asks Child A, "Ever had it done?" To which she cautiously replies, "No, that's why I'm not sure," showing she clearly is not excited or even into the topic of oral sex with this man, but perhaps just playing along. He had been grooming her for over a period of time. She grew to trust him and even feel cared for by him. She didn't believe he would purposely harm her in any way, just an innocent little schoolgirl. He came back with, "Think you might like it. Don't have to carry on after a minute or so if you don't." Oh, a minute or so? You sick bastard. You can see in the text how he tries to gain her trust in this back, and she responds, "Oh, okay, other girls you done it to like it?" You can feel her angst and worry on the matter, and the creepy 66-year-old comes back with, "Not all wanted to try it. Others liked it. One really did." Trying to entice the young girl in. It's so vile. Neil would pick on the most vulnerable girls, like ones who were suffering bullying. He would be a shoulder to cry and lean on, literally. This is how he wormed his way in and would initiate contact with his victims, through things like hugs, pretending to console a sad, bullied child, when really he just wanted to touch them. Sick. Things between Neil and Child A progressed over an unknown amount of time. He would hug, touch, and kiss the young girl. He would offer her lifts home. He would touch her inappropriately, whilst also acting as a male guarding figure in her life, a protector. She must have been so confused, bless her soul. A lot of groomers will even pick out victims who have poor family lives and may already be being abused, further victimising a vulnerable child and target. Neil used WhatsApp as one form of communication, and in Child A's phone, he was saved under the name of Nick Jones, obviously to hide his true identity, and no doubt an instruction given by the paedophile himself for his own protection, and for her to do so for him. CCTV was even found of the two together where Mr. Foden led the girl to his vehicle. He would then take her to secluded locations, of which they are abundant in North Wales. There he would sexually abuse the poor girl. Now, warning guys, this next part is very disturbing. Neil Foden had a fetish, one he had desired and fantasised about for years, and also something he would act out on his victims. Now there's no judgment of any fetishes here, but remember, these were acted out on innocent children, so yeah, I'm defo judging this sick fuck. His fetish was all about urination. Yes, weeing. We don't know exactly how this played out, but we can only imagine. Neil would instruct the girls to drink vast amount of water, so they were desperate to pee, and would also press and add pressure to their bladders to encourage urination. Oh my word, he is despicable, deplorable. Neil also had past searches about the urination fetish on his devices, linking these allegations to a true fetish of his. Mr. Foden gave strict instructions to Child A to never tell anybody about what they did together, even telling her in his words, "You must take it to your grave." Probably insisting in his position that such a fetish being found out would ruin him and his career, rather than the obvious that he was plain and simply grooming and sexually abusing her. Child A was deeply involved with Neil and seemed to trust him a lot, maybe even idolising him. He had groomed her after all, manipulating children into thinking how he wanted them to. She had lots of evidence for police to seize, including many WhatsApp messages, even referring to road trips. Yes, road trips with this predator, even hotel stayovers. She had various photos with and of Neil Foden too, and stories of sexual encounters with the old man. He had even gifted her 2 of his own sweaty work shirts. Ew. Photos of Child A in these shirts were uncovered. The evidence is vigorously stacking up, and very quickly here. Neil would even tell the girl that he loved her. Ugh. It's mad how they manage it, isn't it? Imagine the hardcore, pure grooming that this monster had to do to convince these girls. Come on, he's hardly Brad Pitt, is he? So following these grotesque finds, police would go on to charge Headteacher Neil Foden on the 8th of September, 2 days after his initial arrest, on numerous offences, including child sex offences. He was remanded and stood in front of a judge on the same day. That's when the truth of this evil monster was finally released to the very shocked public, in disbelief of the news. This would spark a domino effect. Many other young female victims then came forward to tell police their true horror stories with Mr. Foden, the well-respected head teacher of Ysgol Friars school in Bangor, North Wales. Because of so many other potential victims of Neil's came forward, Carnarvon Headley, or police, were forced to open up a full operation against the main man in question, named Operation Stone, with a very dedicated team assigned to the case, including digital forensic investigators working all hours to collect evidence, looking into many devices seized. CSI were involved in the scenes and gathering forensic evidence, and intelligence analysts who helped immensely later in the courtroom too. One officer was following child E's expense records, which proved both her and Neil were together, spending money at the exact same locations at the exact same times. Coincidence? I think not. Even proof of an overnight stay together was found. Neil's car was also subsequently searched, proved to be highly involved in his paedophilic activities. In his boot, an officer discovered a pair of lacy handcuffs in a bag, which they sent off to be forensically investigated, and on these handcuffs it was proven that both Neil's and child E's victims' DNA was discovered on them. No excuse, no reasoning for this. Child B and Child C were involved in one-to-one sessions with the head teacher, Mr. Foden. He even led these under the guise of helping students that had been bullied or were suffering in some way, and many parents agreed to this, trusted and believed in him. Some even saw improvements within their children at the time. He was extremely manipulative. When they cried, he offered a shoulder to cry on, or a hug to lean into. I feel this sick bastard got some serious sexual gratification just purely off touching these young girls, especially skin-to-skin contact. Both child B and C said he had touched them inappropriately, like on their legs and thighs, and would say very inappropriate sexual statements to them. He even asked about oral sex and the loss of their virginity, and if they had or not. Sicko to the max. Messages from Neil were discovered, and one said, "You need calming cuddles, kiss kiss." Another vile message said, "Hopefully you'll feel better after cuddles tomorrow and an afternoon together, kiss kiss." These girls were incredibly vulnerable, and he played right into that with each and every one of them, preying on them. He would even comment on their adolescent bodies, one message saying, "If you get more curvy, I'll fancy you even more, kiss kiss." Oh my god, that's what adult females are for, you sick fuck. They are children. They haven't even fully grown into their bodies at this point. Be normal, for God's sake, and pick an adult woman. Well, like any sane adult would. Now, I said his offences dated back to at least 2019, and that is because child E shared the fact that their relationship began back in the year of 2019. It lasted up to close to his arrest as well. She shared photos of hotels they had stayed in together, which police matched up to the actual hotel's own photos and other photographic evidence of the two together and in his car. Undeniable evidence is mounting. He would gain the trust of these young girls and then violate that trust in the worst ways possible. He would, as I say, touch them whenever he could, hold their hands, touch their legs, put his hands up the back of their shirts when hugging them, all whilst reassuring them. Like how fucked up and confusing that must have been for all of these poor victims. One girl said he enjoyed holding her hand and hugging her, and whilst doing so, pressing up his body against her. I can't remember which, but one of them said he used to breathe down her neck as well. Ugh. I can only imagine the gratification he got from these very interactions, that many young people just wouldn't understand or perceive in any form, like how he felt for what that was doing for him. He would even grab the same girl's neck and would continue to do so, even when she asked him to stop. How they felt, didn't care. He just needed gratifying. Sicko. Many people may never have even realised that they had been a victim of his. Some claimed his hugs with them lasted minutes. One even stated 5 minutes. I mean, you never know, it could have been like 1 minute, but it felt like 5 minutes. Can't imagine that all over me. Ooh. One girl stated how he had pinched her on the inner thigh area, hugged her and put his hands down her clothing. Feeling her back, she felt uncomfortable and was left unsettled. Actually, many of his victims had sadly searched the internet about grooming and abuse. Very telling. One search, "I think I'm being sexually groomed. What do I do?" Man, that's so sad. Another search was made. "How to know if an older man is trying to be nice or grooming you." You can see the confusion and discomfort in these searches made. How utterly heartbreaking. And remember, many may have even come from broken or abusive homes themselves. This must have felt like the darkest place possible. Even the man they trusted the most is abusing them, the head teacher, who even their parents trusted. This disturbingly sick individual even stood and spoke up on behalf of child abuse on TV.
The borderline between what's just a joke and fun and banter and a bit of horseplay and what is sexually inappropriate and causes distress to other youngsters is not well enough understood.
Neil Foden was one of the best known teachers in Wales.
None of us know for certain exactly how their work is going to be assessed.
He'd held a senior post in a teaching union. He went into another school as a superhead to sort out their problems.
I think it's a sensible, pragmatic and above all speedy solution to a problem.
And for years he was a regular guest on the TV and radio news.
No remorse at all for his actions, like he displayed in his police interviews with his constant no comment responses.
In some shape or form.
No comment.
No comment. So is that what your sexuality is?
No comment.
Do you want to tell me anything about that?
No comment.
You want to deny that?
No comment.
He could care less about the trauma and long-term damage that he had caused his multiple victims over the years, and all of the harm to so many people. Child E, who had been involved with Neil from 2019, was pivotal in the case against him. She would even travel along with Neil when he attended events, staying in hotels and having sex with the paedophile. He even engaged with her on the bonnet of his own car. No shame at all. What if the police just rolled up? Hello? What are you doing to that little girl? He would restrain her with a belt, sexually abusing the young girl, all whilst referring to her as his sex toy. Absolutely deplorable and depraved. And of course, it was proven through DNA evidence that the handcuffs were used on this same girl. She knew what was happening and what the man was doing to her was wrong, but she also felt safe with this male. Hard to understand, I know, but unless you have ever been in such a situation, you will never truly understand. She also believed that she was the only one and that he wouldn't be abusing other girls. He was a professional and seasoned groomer and child abuser who also managed to groom parents and other members of the community. A pure facade he kept for decades and fooled many in the country of Wales.
When I started seeing him, I thought he was quite nice, so that was a big shock. He was worse than what everyone already thought of him.
As he promised to help when she was being bullied.
I felt, because he listened, that I could trust him, but he ended up taking advantage of that, I think. If I was upset, he'd start rubbing my arm or my leg, and occasionally he'd try to look up my skirt if I was sat in front of him, and that progressed to him hugging me when I was upset, and he would start breathing down my neck. It just made me feel really uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do.
This freak went to the such depths and lows to take advantage of his vulnerable victims, with child E, whom his relationship, if you can call it that, lasted years. He even convinced her to lend him an extreme amount of £900 to fix his bathroom, and never paid her a penny back. Oh wow. That's so depraved, like everything else he did to these girls and their families over the years. He managed to make many people actually feel valued, safe, even important to his life, and many looked up to him, including family members of some victims. They were also groomed and victimised by this male, let me just be clear there. Parents would even turn to Neil when their children were being bullied and were struggling, fully trusting in him to help. You just cannot trust anyone. Terrifying, and makes me feel better about not being able to have my own children myself, to be honest. Evidence of Neil grooming one parent was shown through messages to the girl's father. He wanted to help the girl, but not for her dad to communicate with her about it at all. Neil texted the father saying, "Don't mention we've spoken, please. Important that she trusts me enough to open up about any issues, so not good if she finds out I've misled her right at the start." And adding how the father was more than welcome for his help and support with his daughter, and said happy to do it. I bet you fucking were, you creep. Yeah, but not happy for your victim to open up, share, or even discuss with their own parents about their experiences with you? This says a lot. And about the control he exhumed over many, altering things and keeping information sealed to fit his narrative. A kind and caring male head teacher persona. Sick. 66666. So on the 22nd of April in 2024, Neil Foden's trial would begin, where he was seen writing notes, shaking his head to evidence given, holding his cup of coffee and looking disapproving to the whole court case. The obnoxious, arrogant and cocksure evil monster even took to the stand in his own defence. You see this a lot in cases where criminals have a high, self-righteous view of themselves, extremely conceited individuals who are always right, even when faced with DNA evidence. He played innocent and defensive, and of course, every one of his victims were making this all up. Yeah, the photos together, the messages, the DNA. A few teenage girls plotted this whole ass master plan to take you down. What a dickhead. And how dumb does he sound? He totally victim blamed all of the incredibly brave girls who managed to push through and make it to the horrendous trial, facing the most disturbing evidence and questioning in front of complete strangers. Brutal that would have been. So even in court, he continued to victimise and abuse those poor girls, being in full control once again. By taking the stand in his own defence, which usually means that person even gets to cross-examine and question his own victims. Crazy, isn't it? Although I'm wondering now, is that America or the UK? Just think what further damage and trauma that causes them. He even claimed in court that they were all lying and he couldn't even have sex due to a medical condition he suffered from. Oh my god, you guys, it's the whole Prince Andrew and the I can't sweat condition excuse all over again. Don't you just love it?
One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating. Because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, and that was, yes, I didn't sweat at the time because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at, and I simply, it was almost impossible for me to sweat.
Plus, just to be clear, very clear, you don't need to be having sex to be sexually victimising, abusing and grooming someone. Intercourse is not always involved in rape, but it is still rape nonetheless. So, continuing to exert his control in court, he pled not guilty to all charges, probably actually believing he could beat the system, the jury and all the evidence stacked up against him. From his many victims, just 4 managed to have justice in their cases. He was described in court by the judge as arrogant and controlling, someone that was used to getting his own way. And ain't that the truth? Crazy.
Today, a man who was once regarded as one of the most respected head teachers in Wales is now a convicted sex offender.
He was sentenced on Monday, the 1st of July in 2024, on 19 separate charges, and was handed a 17-year prison sentence. Apparently, I believe there was 21 charges put against him. Fuck me, this sucks. Not even a year per sentence. But whatever, the scum was captured, stopped and imprisoned. But 17 years. Pathetic. Much more investigating was still to be done in this case. How did he manage to lead such a life, in plain sight, abusing many children in the very school he ran? How? As I said, at least 50 opportunities said to have been missed to stop this scum. Who was to blame? Besides, obviously, the peadophile himself. So it was said that as long as you were on Neil Foden's good side, you would get to see his funny, even described as entertaining personality, witty and knowledgeable. He cracked jokes often and many would laugh. But getting on his bad side, his dark side, people would see a completely different Neil Foden. Like, if anyone even slightly criticised Neil's school, he would take it as a personal assault against him. He became very defensive and even aggressive against others. Apparently, his body posture would change, and he adapted this deep and powerful stare, which often made people completely stop in their tracks and stop talking altogether. He had that kind of intimidating air about him, without barely even trying. People often became scared of him, scared to talk up to the man. Being the headmaster of the school, he genuinely did have a huge amount of control over many people. He always used this to his advantage. Back in the year of 2014, Neil Foden faced accusations of bullying in the workplace. A science teacher had raised worries and concerns about exam results being altered, which was later questioned by managers at the school. Unfortunately, these claims were not taken seriously enough, and in return, Neil Foden would choose to also completely victimise and abuse the science teacher with a campaign of harassment lasting years, leaving the man feeling on edge all of the time. He had subjects removed from him, including an A-level and separate sciences. He was further disciplined twice, and the school even suspended him, making up ridiculous accusations against the science teacher, who was purely just looking out for the children in the school in the first place. And who was in control of such decisions? Why, of course, the head teacher himself, Mr. Foden, with all the power and control once again at his feet and fingertips. Then in 2017, an employment tribunal found the science teacher's suspension was unjustified, and how Neil Foden had indeed discriminated against the man, explaining him as petty and vindictive. The teacher was awarded £8,000 in compensation and moved to a different school. Good for him.
Yeah, that's fine.
Of all the allegations that could be made against him, I never thought it would be sexual abuse. Had he lost his temper with a pupil or been very bullying towards staff members, then that would have been not unexpected.
You were either in his camp or you were not, and you were not in his camp. Some members of staff felt that that they became targets in the school, and that was very unfortunate because it created an atmosphere, or a climate at least, of fear and intimidation.
It was said that Neil was found to have accessed material involving urination and young girls back in as early as 2010, so many years before, and it obviously could have been previous to that too. And as stated, the grooming of child E began in 2019 up until around 2022. In 2019, colleagues of Neil's even said that they had witnessed the two, as in victim E and Neil, getting into his car together, yet still they did not raise the issue. And alarms, major failures in the schooling system, basic observations of terribly inappropriate behaviour just completely ignored by people in a place of trust and care to all of these children. And worst of all, it was the fucking head teacher doing it. They are also guilty to me. He was even observed hugging the young girl, yet nothing was said or done. Everyone was so scared to speak up. Their jobs mattered more than those innocent children did. End of. Once again, even when one senior teacher raised concerns to the Gwynedd Council, they again failed to investigate the head teacher's so-called closeness to teenage girls. A clear concern in a school environment, from a male in a position of power, authority and trust over many, thousands of students. Mr. Foden was just purely instructed to keep a safe distance with young people. Wow, he's a head teacher in a school. How is he meant to do that? That is disgusting and embarrassing, to be honest. Between May and June of 2019, Independent Complaints Committee report states that the school itself is overly dependent on the opinion of Neil Foden. Between the summer and autumn of the same year, a second safeguarding concern about Neil was raised by Anglesey Council. Anglesey, by the way, is a fucking spectacular island in the north of Wales and one of my favourite places on earth. Sorry, slightly distracted again talking about Wales. The information was then passed on to Singer Gwynedd, but no formal investigation ever took place. Yet another utter and complete failure towards all children in Neil's school and path. Awful, it really is. So many people, so many opportunities, not missed, but ignored and never acted on. Just brushed aside. On February the 5th of 2020, Neil would abuse child E in his hotel room the night before speaking at, get this, the Children, Young People and Education Committee at the Senedd Cymru, which is the Welsh Parliament, the democratically elected body that represents the interests of Wales and its people. I mean, how fucked up is that? The night before he's sexually abusing a little girl, calling her his sex toy, and God knows what else, then talking and acting for the people and children of Wales. The entire country. Ugh, he has no shame at all, and he just loves the limelight. Later in 2020, Neil would be reprimanded for bullying his staff. He was found guilty of unacceptable professional conduct. This led to him being kicked out of his union. But despite all of this, and the previous concerns over his closeness to teenage girls, Neil Foden was still asked and essentially invited into another school with more children to victimise, groom, violate and abuse. Just crazy. All the warning signs were there, you guys. Yet he went on to become a strategic head at Ysgol Nanhill on the 21st of June 2021. He will feel invincible at this point. By September of 2021, Neil faced new allegations of assault against a male student this time. A mother of a boy stated that Mr. Foden was filmed assaulting her 11-year-old son, holding him down forcefully and kneeling over his head. Big man over here beating up little boys. What a complete malt. On the 12th of November, Neil made headlines on the news and in the papers, telling the public that students would not be eligible to school meals if they were just 1 pence in debt.
Students at a comprehensive school in Wales are being told that they won't be allowed any more school meals if they're more than 1 pence in debt.
We don't want to see children going hungry, but by the same token, we can't tolerate a situation where we are effectively subsidising a number of parents, many of whom we're quite sure can pay.
A letter was even sent out to parents outlining this. The cook has been instructed to not give food to any child whose accounts do not have enough money to pay for lunch. Which, you can kind of understand, but essentially he's using his power to punish the parents struggling in life, but using the kids to do so. So he's punishing the children for doing nothing. Nice. That is using power for all the wrong reasons. The footballer Marcus Rashford, who formerly played for Manchester United and currently is on loan to Barcelona, was furious at this news and threw weight behind the parents of the school. Marcus had been fighting for years on behalf of the children in the UK, like when he fought back at Boris Johnson about free school meals.
Morning, Prime Minister.
It was supposed to be a photo opportunity to launch this year's Poppy Appeal.
Why let kids go hungry, Prime Minister? Will you extend free school meals?
He didn't say it, but the answer is no. However, political pressure is mounting, and it's coming from the unofficial opposition. Footballer Marcus Rashford, usually seen playing for Manchester United, here he is at a Manchester food bank with his mum. The 22-year-old has faced criticism during his campaign to keep free school meals going through the holidays. He told BBC Breakfast he doesn't let it bother him.
For me, it's, I'll take that all day long as we start to see improvements going forward for the people that are in need of it is what's important to me, so I don't mind the criticism.
He says it's not about politics, but in speaking out he's sparked a political movement that is sweeping the country. And social media, with many businesses saying they will provide free school meals for children that need them during half-term. Marcus Rashford is coordinating the response on his Twitter feed.
Now, around 1.3 million children in England will be able to claim vouchers for free school meals during the summer holidays, following a campaign led by the Manchester United footballer Marcus Rashford. Prime Minister Boris Johnson praised Mr Rashford's contribution to the debate around poverty. Scotland and Wales will also continue with the voucher programme, while Northern Ireland is considering an extension.
Marcus Rashford says he's given a voice to vulnerable families, but there's more he wants to do.
I'm just grateful that the Prime Minister did change his decision, and he understood, and I spoke to him earlier on today and just thanked him for that, and it was a nice conversation to have with him, and just that we understood each other. He was just grateful that someone basically just had an opinion and shared it with people, and just been that voice for people that didn't really have the platform to speak out as much as they would like to.
He's written to every MP for support after helping to raise £20 million for food for low-income families during the lockdown.
He personally struggled in life when he was a child, and his single mum was on the basic wage. And he wants to help as many poverty-stricken families as possible. Respect to Rashford, and thank you for all you've done for the families and children across the UK. He posted on his social media account, "Has the pandemic not taught us anything? Can we not be understanding? Come on now," displaying his clear frustration and anger at Mr. Foden choosing to punish these innocent children.
There are 2 letters that are being sent out. The tone of the first one I thought was a little bit unfortunate as well, and that has raised 1 or 2 hackles.
Also, apparently in November of 2021, the council once again fails to suspend Neil over restraining another student, instead just being told to work from home for a bit. Utterly pathetic. He was pretty much untouchable and above the law by this point. Failing so many children, it's so sad. The judge in Mr. Foden's court case even raised his concerns over how worrying it was that even the allegations from 2019 were not raised or taken seriously enough. And think of the abuse he went on to do in between that time frame. Then in February of 2022, footage captured Mr. Foden grabbing a child at Ysgol Nanhill, the second school he was placed at. He leaves his role there in August, but that was just his second school placement. He remained in power at his school in Bangor. In 2023, Neil began grooming and abusing child A. And in the March of 2023, Neil receives an email from teachers at his school telling him his closeness to child A was unwise. Unwise? Fucking unwise? It's nonsense, mate. Pure grooming from a sick, paedophilic individual. Not unwise, but illegal, okay? What's wrong with these people? In July of the same year, a social worker of child B meets up at the school with worries over the young girl's excessive frequency in Foden's office. Mr. Foden was seen by other staff members alone with separate individual female students, and for long periods of time. He was seen driving them home, and one girl was observed with her head on his shoulders. Much too intimate to be with your head teacher, and a man God knows how many times your age. This sicko would even accompany these young girls to various appointments, including doctors, acting as their safeguard and carer in a position of trust and respect in not just his school, but the entire community. On one occasion, Neil even accompanied one girl to a fucking gynecologist appointment, and without her parents' consent or knowledge, or agreeance to such a crazy situation. Sick as fuck, to say the least. Like, what the hell, you guys? I dread to think what that was about. Poor girl. He later took the same young girl to a hospital appointment, which led to the clinician there consulting with a health safeguarding team. I'm just putting 2 and 2 together here and guessing this creepazoid got an underage girl pregnant and sent her to abort it, but that is just my pure speculation on the matter though. But get this, a letter was sent by the clinician saying how they understood that the child spends a lot of time with Mr. Foden in his room, so clearly questioning this behaviour. But it was fucking sent to the child herself and through the school, but addressed to Neil Foden himself. Like, what the actual hell is going on here? And this letter would later be found in what had been Neil's office, and more than 5 whole years after it was initially sent by the clinician. Another deep failure. I'm sorry, but they should have gone straight to the police. The clinician, I mean, or the place that they went to. They should have gone straight to the police, or at least the young girl's parents. Dear God, was it because they knew who he was and his power? Who knows? But another major failure there. Another missed opportunity to stop this pedo in his tracks. Ignored opportunity. So ultimately, in his trial, Neil Foden faced 20 charges, not 19, or 21 even maybe, and 13 included sexual activity with a child. One child's allegations had been dropped, I'm guessing from insufficient evidence. I'm also guessing that had to have been child D, as we don't hear anything of her account. On the 15th of May 2024, Neil was found guilty of sexual abuse involving 4 different schoolgirls over a 4-year period. Not to say others do not exist, as the majority of victims in such circumstances never actually come forward or can even accept what has happened to them. Easier just to block it out and try and forget it all. But thanks to Operation Stone, all of the hard-working and dedicated investigators and individuals who were involved in this case, plus the completely admirable victims of Mr. Foden with their immense amount of bravery and courage, a pure evil monster and child abuser will be taken off the streets of beautiful Wales for the next 17 years. Let's hope he dies in prison. As we all know, child sex offenders are certainly not idolised in prison, but instead despised by most, except other sex offenders, of course, obviously. So let's hope someone inside the prison decides to take justice into their own hands and eliminate this scum of the earth sooner rather than later. And yep, I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart and deep from my ginger soul too, even though apparently we don't have souls. No chance of release, please, prison people. But let him suffer for a while first. On the 16th of May 2024, following Neil's guilty verdict, the North Wales Safeguarding Board announced it would undertake a child practice review. On the 8th of October 2024, even more alleged victims came forward, dating all the way back to the year of 1979. Wow. This was at a previous job, as Neil did not become headmaster at Ysgol Friars in Bangor until the 1st of April in 1997, many years later. So basically he's always been a wrong-un. On the 10th of October 2024, singer, Gwyneth, leader, I cannot say this person's name, Siensen, refused to apologise to victims and instead just resigned from his position. What a pussy. And on November the 4th of 2025, so not long ago at all, a child practice review found that a total of 52 known opportunities to stop a prolific sex offender were missed. No, they were completely and utterly ignored because of the position of power this male had over many in the north of Wales. It is truly despicable how so many chances to prevent this sick fuck abusing young girls and boys in many different forms were blatantly ignored and dismissed by so many, just disregarded. Shameful. To turn a blind eye again and again and just brush aside the clear warning signs, the red flags, and actual evidence of abuse is unforgivable. And if you ask me, those people, those individuals who paid no attention and acted oblivious to Neil's sick actions, are also guilty. Who agrees with that? Just let me know in the comments. I would love to know. They are there to protect thousands of innocent and vulnerable children. Genuinely, who can you actually trust to protect and safeguard all of your children? Well, who the fuck knows anymore? This kind of case makes you seriously question humanity and all involved. Not just the disgusting bastard, Neil Foden himself, but all people that prevented the stopping of his despicable actions. I just want to give the biggest thanks and bow of respect to all of Neil Foden's victims who managed to pluck up the courage and come forward to investigators, and the ones who faced him in court. Because if it wasn't for all of you girls, this incredibly sick individual would no doubt still be out there grooming innocent little girls and calling them his sex toys and other demeaning things, pretending to care and support them whilst violating them in the worst ways possible. using his power and authority in the worst ways imaginable. And to the most vulnerable of people, choosing a job role which made it incredibly easy, way too fucking easy, to access and manipulate multiple victims, and this, sadly, happens all too often. And people ignoring it is just exacerbating the issue.
We sincerely apologise to all of you. You should not have had to suffer at the hands of a man you should have been able to trust. This report highlights the fact that opportunities were missed on far too many occasions, and as one of the organisations that should have acted to prevent the offender, we failed in our response.
Today was one of deep shame for this North Wales authority.
The very last thing that any director of social services, anyone who works for social care, would want is for anybody to be mistreated and to be abused in this terrible manner. There's no question about an apology. Of course we apologise. Of course we do. I personally feel a deep shame that this happened. I feel that this has been an appalling episode in the history of social care in North Wales and Gwynedd.
Schools should be safe places for children. As parents and carers, we put our trust in these institutions to keep our children safe. Foden was a sophisticated and controlling paedophile. We know from listening to victims that speaking up, calling out abuse and seeking help is for many an impossible task. That is why many victims keep these hideous secrets until they're adults, and some never speak out, taking them to their grave.
North Wales Police welcome today's sentence, which reflects the appalling nature of Neil Foden's crimes. We share the shock and revulsion of our communities towards his actions. As a head teacher, he was there to safeguard young people, to look after them and to develop them for a brighter future, and instead he abused his position for his own sexual gratification. I want to thank the victims that came forward in this case. Their courage and their strength in going through the ordeal of this trial is to be admired by everyone. I've got no doubt that their actions have saved future generations from being victims at the hands of Neil Foden.
I wish nothing but the best in life for the 5 girls who came forward and any other victims of Neil Foden's, as I am deadly sure there are many, many more. I hope healing finds all of you, and you can get past your horrific trauma and abuse and the long-term damage he's caused to all of you, and his male victims too. Anyone who came under the wrath and evil of this scum, may your futures be bright and full of true love and respect, love and support. Don't allow this cretin the gratification of writing any of your futures. His reign of control and power is finally over, done and dusted, and may he rot in prison and hell forevermore. Once a well-respected and honoured influential head teacher in the Welsh schooling system is now just another dirty pedo. Please, if you feel you have witnessed anything like what has been mentioned in today's horrific episode, do not hesitate or waste any time and go straight to your local authorities. If you are a witness to such abuse or even just questionable behaviour and choose to simply ignore it, you are in fact just adding to this deplorable problem and allowing the sex offenders to carry on their reign of campaign and abuse and terror. They must be stopped. You must act now. Thank you all for being here today and sticking around to the very bitter end. You bloody legends. I appreciate you all. And if you enjoyed this episode and are a true crime fan like myself, please consider subscribing to my channel for more and other random Jan stuff. And please drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and perhaps even a comment of your thoughts on it too. I do all of my own research, writing, audio editing and video making, and this episode included a lot of my own videos and pictures too from Wales. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all and good night. Diolch ac nos da. Random gem. Nos da.